Hi, good evening. This is Sekhar Burra. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, certified enterprise coach from Scrum Alliance. Um, Today is June 8th, and this is 7 p.m. in the evening. So today I want to present a small, uh, live stream on um, Agile for startups on a broader topic, the Agile for startups. This is something that I presented before on my Scrum Alliance webinar. If you didn't watch that webinar before, I'm going to replay it again for you. So something that might help you to recap. So, um, so this is what I'm going to share. Um, so I have a few slides of why Agile for startups is very important. And one thing that I wanted to mention here is um, Agile is not only for IT organizations or software development or big multinationals. Based on my best experience, Agile ways of working adds a lot of value to startups and how they can really iterate faster and get the market feedback and value delivery and adapt to the market feedback and supports value delivery. So this presentation roughly might take anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. So if you are someone who have some questions, you can always post your question in the chat and I'll get to it as soon as I finish this. Thank you. So, so what is the agenda of this webinar? I quickly go through the startup landscape and some of the key challenges that we encounter and how Agile principles support startups and their relevance to startups and driving innovation through Agile practices. Again, something which we see bit challenging in many startups where innovation is one of the key component of a startup to be successful in the market. If you cannot innovate, if you don't understand the market problem or a customer problem, as a startup, you're not going to stand really tall in the market. And gaining competitive advantage in fast-paced markets because everything is changing really fast. And how do you gain competitive advantage over your nearest competitor? And practical agile strategies for scaling startups. Let's say, for example, you did everything right, and how do you scale this agility to the next level? And happy to take any Q&A at the end of the session. So, um, so based on a lot of reports and research surveys, I have seen 90% of the startups usually fail, and 42% fail because there is no market need for their product. So anyone can guess why this usually happens. Most of the time, what I often see is we have an idea. Every startup founder have their idea, and they start building with an assumption that there is a huge market potential without validating the market potential. And because of which majority of the startups fail, and they fail really late in the game after after we exhaust all the budgets, after losing a lot of time. So this is where any agile ways of working is going to be a real game changer. So so some of the challenges, again, what I see in startups is limited funding and resource constraints because, again, startups do not come with unlimited pot of money. So they have very less amount of money to be really prototyping in the market, and they wanted to make the biggest impact based on whatever the funds they have. And then scaling operations effectively because startup founders are always juggling between customers, juggling between employees. Again, a lot of regulatory challenges for startups. Again, they got to file their yearly balance sheets and everything. And the biggest and one of the biggest challenges that I always see is adapting to rapid market changes because most of the startups are being disrupted really fast. So I have an idea today, but within a couple of weeks or few months, my idea is outdated because there is something else in the market which is going to beat it. And there is always a challenge between managing time, priorities, and cross-functional teams. You got to juggle between multiple things, and and you know how these challenges impact the growth and innovation, because most of the time a startup founder end up spending a lot of time on things that doesn't matter. For example, they might be spending time on regulatory stuff, or they might be spending time on a lot of time on people, and helping people understand the vision and all that. There's so many things that they usually end up spending time on, which doesn't really support the market growth, or which doesn't support the organization growth. So while I say that spending time on people and everything is very important, but at the same time, relatively, when you compare with a customer acquisition, is it important? So again, spending time or spending majority of your time slice on those things that matters a lot is something that really is going to be the biggest winner for a startup founder. So that is what I have seen many times across. So what are Agile values? And here I just present some of the simplified version of Agile values. So one is people over processes and tools, because most of the Agile organizations are human centric. They value people, their collective working together over following a heavy process or a tool. I never meant to say that processes and tools are not important, but relatively, people and their collaboration, their working together as a team is more important than following a heavy process or a tool. And then working prototypes over heavy documentation. We wanted to understand if our idea is going to really create the impact that we are looking at. So how do you do a rapid prototyping to understand if there is a real interest in the market for your product idea or not? And the other one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Busy, we as startup founders, busy in collaborating with the customer and developing something that matters to them based on the feedback, rather than writing heavy contracts. So, and then responding to change over following a plan. Planning is important, but we are not plan driven. So we make plans, but if things change, we change a lot of our plans. Okay. So this is a simplified version of Agile values followed by Agile principles. So this is a snapshot of what Agile principles are, and we simplified it. So one thing that stands out for me is simplify everything. So don't get into a lot of complexity. Simplify your organization structure, simplify the ways of communication, simplify the processes, simplify the hierarchies, simplify everything, so that the cost of overheads of maintaining a complex structure and organization is going to come down. So, and then eliminating waste. One of the waste that I often see in many startups is they spend a lot of time, communicating across multiple departments. And that is also something, I have seen this again and again, where they have a lot of struggle in understanding, the siloed, who is really playing the spoil sport. The siloed organizations, siloed departments usually have the biggest challenge many times, where there is a lot of communication overhead. And the other one which stands out to me is build around motivated teams. Most of the time, you find people that have extrinsic motivation. They are motivated towards salary or a promotion or a reward or whatever it is. So how do you know that your people are truly passionate to the vision of the startup? That is something that needs to be validated. And how do you set your startup on the journey of continuous improvement? Because we always say that getting it right the first time is not something that is feasible every time, isn't it? So, how do you make mistakes and keep those micro improvements? How do you keep on improving over a period of time? Is going to be the real killer, according to me. So, as a startup, how do you ensure that there are improvements that are happening, and we are not repeating the same mistakes that we have did before? So I call it as a learning organization. How is your organization learning everything and adapting to it, rather than making the same mistakes again and again? So now, agile principles and their relevance, again, one more. What I would always recommend is, maybe very simple and lightweight frameworks are going to be very helpful for startups, and rapid prototyping and shorter feedback loops. Often I see many startups. I was recently talking to one of my friend. They were making a startup for schools, or they were making a product for schools, and it was a startup. So, you know, what I learned was they rented a space, they made beautiful interiors inside, they hired a team, they were developing this product for more than a year. So at the end of 1 year, they came to know that whatever they developed so far is not how the schools were functioning there. So now tell me what happens to all those beautiful interiors. So everything was waste. So the idea was, you fail 1 year from now, or you fail 1 month from now, which is going to save a lot of time and money. So that is the real question. So it's all about, how do you fail faster? How do you fail cheaper? Make your failure so small that you can easily overcome this. And most of the time, many startups don't even realize that they have to fail, because they always say that, hey, you know what? I'm here to succeed. No, it doesn't work that way. So if you cannot develop a product, or you cannot develop a product to solve a specific problem, you're not wanted by your market, isn't it? So that is something that I have seen. And customer driven development, mostly make sure that there is a customer out there for your product idea, and the customer is driving what they really wanted. And lean thinking to minimize waste. Yeah. So I don't know how many of you know it. In Scrum, we call this as impediments. So what are some of the impediments that we really go through? One impediment that we usually go through is partially done work. The teams produce a lot of partially done works by the end of the sprint. The other one is extra features, giving more than what was asked for, or giving something else that was not asked for. Lost knowledge. If someone leaves your team, it takes a lot of time to get back the knowledge or backfill the knowledge. And handoffs, passing works from one department to another department. You keep on passing that button. And delays are waiting time. You wait on something. And finally, defects. In Scrum, we call each of this as impediments. Scrum is one of the process framework that align to this agile principles, and continuous learning and pivoting as needed, because we think that we have a very good idea, but when you start validating this idea with the market, probably you find something else. And maybe an idea which is very close to your idea, but it is not exactly the same. How do you refine your idea, and how do you refine your vision continuously, so that you are building something that matters? And great engineering practices. Again, these engineering practice, what happens if you don't follow these engineering practices? You might end up with a lot of technical debt, which we will talk about a little later today. So few things why Agile fuels innovation in startups. So again, my biggest winner in this slide is adapt to mindset. Do we have a culture in our organization to build something which always align to the customer. And the customers usually will change their mind, isn't it? Whatever the customer wanted yesterday, they no longer want it now. Whatever the customer wanted few months back, they no longer want it now. So it's something like this. No, I ask someone to, hey, whoever wants to buy a dress, I ask them to, hey, can you describe all the requirements before you go to the store? Well, they display, they might talk about the color, they might talk about the size, they might talk about the high level requirements. Then I ask, what is the probability that you are going to exactly pick the same thing that you described? So, well, they might change their mind looking at the options available, isn't it? And to me, customers are also like that. Our customers are also like that. Both majority of the customers, they don't know what they really want until they see it in their hands, until they see it working in their hands, isn't it? So that is why most of the customers, they don't know what they really want. Most of the customers, they think that they know what they want, but when you build what they really want and give it to them, they say that this is not what I want. So most of the time, what happens is what the customer thought they wanted today is different from what the customer thought they wanted like a few months or few years later. So with the time, given the number of options that are evolving in the market, they change their mind. And I have seen this again and again. Okay. So most of the time, you should be able to do this rapid experimentation. Um, so you got to know early in the game what works, what doesn't work, and what is high priority, what is low priority. So I mean, a quick example that I have cited here is the Airbnb. So the challenge is, struggle to gain traction with early users, and they took an agile approach, quickly iterated based on guest feedback, improved UX, and tested new market. And the outcome was scaled globally by continuously refining its platform through agile-driven innovation. So how did they take feedback and how they started improving everything? Okay, so a very good case study, you can find it everywhere. And this is another case study, a well-known Anthropic case study in agile startup shaping AI safety. So applied agile principles rapidly, develop and refine AI models, and they also adapted this continuous feedback loops. And um, and I would say ethical AI innovation. This is the biggest, game changer that really stands out. And how do you really gain competitive advantage in fast-paced market? So any agile ways of working enables rapid iterations, allowing startups to launch, test, and refine products faster than competitors. So, how do I know that if whatever I'm developing is it something my customers are going to like? So, one thing what I do is I make smaller product increments, and I want my customers to use it and give a feedback. For example, if I have to take a Dropbox example, during early days of Dropbox, they have an idea that, hey, you know what, store, I wanted to save in Word document in Windows, and later I should be able to access through Mac. So Windows, iOS, they want the same file to be accessed across multiple platforms, Windows, Mac, Android, and everything. So what they did was, they put a video out there to understand if there is a real interest in the market for this idea or not. So what they were doing was, they saved an file in Windows environment, and later they showed that I can access the same. Nothing was disturbed. The content was intact from Mac. So they put this video outside, and overnight the beta waiting list went away from 5,000 to 75,000. So there was there was a strong evidence that a market wants something like this. So because of which, what happened? they were able to build the first prototype and put it in the hands of the customer. So how do you know that there is a demand in the market? How do you test the market? And how do you shorten the feedback loops? And how do you only build something that matters to a customer in the market, not what you think might be needed? Okay, you means a startup founder. Okay, so this is one example which I see where the more you do this kind of prototyping, the more you understand the market, the more you try to evolve your product based on your customers' need or competitive edge. Okay, so I mean, you develop that competitive edge. So practical agile strategies for startups. So one of the thing that I often do is, do you have a test bed in your organization where you test a lot of business ideas? I came to know that the other day, Facebook has at least 100 to 150 ideas they keep on testing to understand if there is a real interest in the market for any specific idea or not. See, anyone nowadays can give ideas, but the real problem is most of these ideas do not work. So they wanted to test these ideas consistently over a period of time to understand if there is a real interest in this market for this idea or not. Okay, so the more you try to experiment, the more you understand what your customers want and what your customers don't want, or what really matters to them. So, and then you can use prioritization techniques like Moscow. Moscow is must have, should have, could have, Kano model, weighted shortest job first for feature prioritization. You're trying to only build something that matters and validate experiments through rapid prototyping, and eliminate waste through build, learn, measure cycle, and design sprints. I believe some of them are still doing design sprints, structured sprint goals for iterative and incremental development. And of course, cross-functional teams where we wanted to eliminate those silos across the teams. So what are some of the ways how you scale startups? One thing is structuring teams. So what I call it as, we believe in cross-functional teams or feature teams. So every team must be working on a product feature. So it's something like this, no? You're the owner of your house and you are getting your house constructed. There is one team building the basement, another team building the kitchen, another team building the living room. And what happens if these three teams don't talk to each other? What kind of a house are they really going to build for you? Okay, so no matter whatever crap they build, you are the one who is going to own it. Similarly, one product owner, multiple teams building different parts of the product and putting their pieces together. That is how I see a product development under startup. And then prioritizing customer value. What are some of the features that makes a biggest impact, rather than building everything and pushing them to a customer on a deadline? So we support incremental value delivery and frequent value delivery, rather than a big bang value delivery at the end of maybe 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is. So big bang value delivery most of the time loses relevance with time. What does that mean? For example, my customer wanted like 20 features on day one when we start developing, but at the end of 6 months or maybe whatever is the time period, they don't want half of these features, but they want something else. So this is where most of the big bang deliveries, they totally lose the relevance or they lose partial relevance. That is what something that I have seen. And other thing was like, how do you sustain agile culture and mindset? Many organizations that I have seen, they start agile with a big euphoria, and later on it will drop. So sustaining is really, really important, because most of the time sustaining is going to be very, very challenging. Sustaining a new culture. For example, Many times in many organizations, there was a CIO or a CEO, whoever it is, who was really passionate in this agile ways of working. He started this with a big euphoria. After a few months or years, um, he just move on to a different organization, or he just moves into a different role, and whoever the person replacing this person, he will not take it forward. He or she just undo the whole agile thing. So, and I've seen teams coming back to square one again. So that is not something that we don't really like. Most of the time, all the effort that we put in creating agile cultures were wasted. And the other thing was implementing lean governance. Many organizations, many leaders think that agile is only at the bottom of the organization, not for us. So that is also something that I've seen. Uh, if a leader do not understand lean governance and agile ways of working, no matter how much effort people at the bottom put it, um, it's not going to go up. The reason is most of the teams working in agile at the bottom of the organizations are bottlenecked in the middle, because the top do not understand it, or top do not support agile ways of working. And the other one is leveraging agile metrics. So measure only what matters. Do not measure everything to create wrong behaviors. And then leveraging metrics for scaling. Again, one should be really, really careful of scaling. I do not encourage blind scaling again. Blind scaling only scale problems, not agile practices. So just be careful if you're scaling something without knowing why you're scaling it. Okay, so many times I recommend the opposite. The opposite is descale to simplify the mess. Most of the organizations have a lot of chaos, and blindly applying a scaling framework is going to scale up the chaos, is going to scale up the mess, is going to scale up your problems. And when the problems becomes bigger, it's so difficult for you to solve them. For example, I have seen few teams where they cannot integrate their own product increment with their previous sprints. But now a popular scaling framework was applied on these teams, and now they were asked to scale with five other teams, or asked to integrate with five other teams. You know how much mess it is going to be for this team. Most of the time, this is always one step forward and two steps back. Okay, so so what are some of the common pitfalls in scaling agile? Again, most of the time blindly applying something that worked for others. So I don't see a value in this, because it might be working in a specific context for them, not for us. And it may have its own side effects when you try to apply them in our context. So I always, even in a transformation, what I often do is take a thin slice of an organization and start applying it and see if it works, and then go to the next thing and go to the next slice. That is what I would say. And one of the biggest problem that I often see is losing customer centricity, because I've seen many organizations, they do all the meetings, they do everything, but they don't get early feedback from the customer, and because of which things usually uh, you know uh, be so much chaotic, because getting a late feedback from the customer is almost equivalent to doing waterfall or doing traditional practices. So that's why I would not get a late feedback from the customer. So overcomplicating processes and governance, you apply, CMMI, you apply Agile, you apply project management, you apply. So you try to do a lot of mix and match of so many things, and people are confused. So the more simple framework you apply, the more better it is for everyone to follow. But if you start doing a lot of mix and match of so many frameworks, because nowadays there is so much noise in this world in the name of Agile. And if you are doing a lot of mix and matches, you are going to create too many problems. Okay. And the other one is traditional silo teams and lack of cross-functional collaboration. Again, there were a lot of fights like this department versus that department. and ignoring culture and mindset shift. Most of the time, there are no coaches. So there are so many agile transformations are going on even now without an expert coach hand holding. And people think that they know it. And they realize very late after multiple years that whatever they were doing is not working. So you wasted a lot of time, lot of everything so far. So I always recommend that you start with an expert coach rather than wasting too much time doing it on your own and then figuring it out after multiple years that nothing worked. Okay. So, and underestimating leadership role in agile scaling, as I said before, agility is for everyone, not only at the bottom of the organization. Even the top leaders have to understand this ways of working before they influence people at the bottom. So scaling too early or too late, again, most of the time, don't do blind scaling. As I said before, measure only what matters. And then when things go wrong, you have to seek an expert coach help. No, so what are some of the founders' role in fostering agility? Again, removing impediments, fostering agility through vision and fail fast, fail cheap culture, leading by example, agile mindset in action, growth mindset. Mindset is all about continuous learning and continuous improvement. It is not get it right the first time, and innovate through what customer really want. Okay, so these are the few things that I'm wanted a founder to get involved in. So happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so if you are more interested in learning about why Agile, why is that we have to take this approach, you can always reach out to me, and this is the QR code that you can look into. You can always reach out to me. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can always happy to learn more about why Agile for startups. All right. So why is it important and what really makes the difference? And what happens if you don't follow the agile ways of working? Pretty soon, I'll also come up with some age AI and agile for startups together. So we can discuss more on that at that point of time. All right. Thank you so much. And see you in the next video. Thank you.